Hello, YouTube. Oh, excuse the sound of my throat. Rose. What? Anyway, I'm sick. I got a little bit of. It's not really strep. I don't know that it's strep. I have a sore throat for sure, and it hurts. But little hypodermic needles in the back of my throat. Front of my throat too, just in my throat, and it's got my pelvic hernia bulging and throbbing because every time I cough, it bulges and does more new damage to my pelvis. So I'm just in a lot of pain right now, and I'm trying not to think about it. I'm trying to think about something productive, and maybe instead of just talking to Gemini as I get ready, I'll just go live. Because I was reading through my journals the other day with Gemini. I was reading through my journals, and I noticed that at the time I kept talking about how I should be doing these journals live. I shouldn't be doing them on paper. I should be doing them live. I should be jotting these thoughts down. I should be saying them as I have them. I should be exploring them as I think them, and then I should be letting them down as I'm not thinking them anymore. Kind of like we talked about yesterday, like the zen of the grind, um, is what Gemini would call it, absolutely. Um, Gemini's always trying to give things a title or a shorthand name, always trying to name things, which is highly annoying because, as Rachel would remind me, a robot cannot name things because a robot, a computer program, a line of code within an electric storage program, an electric storage system of magnets and magic bullshit, cannot name things. It's a uniquely human gift, and we don't get to. What's the word I'm looking for? When you don't get to delegate the art and the responsibility of properly naming things to a robot. Hey, Eric. But I've been thinking about football because I watched a lot of football. I watched the playoffs, and I watched the season too. And I promised, I suggested that I might, if I could get people to show up and ask questions and participate and want to see it and pay me money for the privilege of hearing what I have to say, because everybody else who talks about a subject knowingly, knowledgeably, gets paid for it. Why should I not ask for the same, or at least hold behind a paywall or a pay bowl, really, my light? They say not to hide your light in a bushel basket. Fine, I don't have it in a bushel basket, but the bushel basket ain't fucking free either. Somebody had to make it. And if I had to make it, I'm allowed to charge for it. But football. So, like, the takeaway from this season, if you look at the numbers and you look at the graphs, and I was having Gemini show me the numbers and the graphs and make sure that everything that I was seeing with my eyeballs was playing out in real time. It was supported by numbers, and it is. It is, and I know it's supported by numbers because I watched the numbers and I watched the graphs grow as the season progresses, and this is not going to work. I'm not going to be able to get my fucking thing to balance the way I've got all my blankets, and that's going to get on my nerves. And for some reason, my phone is zooming wildly in the wrong ways. Like, what is happening this morning? Well, we've just returned to December of 24, and this is going to piss me off. Thank you. What the fuck, YouTube? I'm not in the mood to laugh and joke about it. I already did that short, or that live show. Annoyed. So, the major takeaway, like, if you just want to hear what the major takeaway from the NFL was this season, the major takeaway is that NFL defenses get paid as well. Okay, NFL defenses get paid as well, and somehow offensive coaches haven't figured out what the offensive line is for. Offensive coaches have not figured out that the pass rush is coming. Man, I watched that Patriots Chargers game just feeling so bad for Justin Herbert. He keeps getting these coaches who think that eking your way through the regular season without ever addressing the offensive line or ever accounting for the defensive front seven is how you're going to win playoff games. Like, we're just going to go in there and we're just going to eke out a win because that's what you do in the playoffs. You play gritty, eke out, win a game football. And it's just not how you win football in the playoffs. In the playoffs, the gloves come off, folks. In the playoffs, the gloves come off. The Saints that won that Super Bowl on bounties didn't get in trouble for the bounties on Brett Favre in the playoffs that put them in the Super Bowl. The gloves come off in the playoffs, folks. Playoffs are a bare knuckle fight between, I don't know, as many as 100 adult human beings trying to win in the name of their city. Because the game of NFL football comes from a time before civilization as you would recognize it. During the Middle Ages, the game of football, not soccer, the game of football was used to settle small and large-scale disputes between towns. During the Roman age, they had a festival where the entire city of Rome was split in half, and end zones were put at the gates on either end of the city, and the residents of each half of the city played a massive, incomprehensible game of football. Get the pigskin into one of the goals, that half of the city wins. People all the time ask, why does Ohio have 2 NFL football teams? And it's because the northern and southern halves of Ohio are dramatically different, socioeconomically, culturally different places. Socioeconomic, cultural places. They're dramatically different ethnicities, northern and southern Ohio. Central Ohio is a different ethnicity. Ohio is a through state that behaves more like the states around it, because it's a big rectangle, it's a big square with like a triangle on the bottom. It behaves more like the states around it than itself, because it's a through state. It's a state that the states around it travel through to get to the state on the other side. And so the central, the eastern, the western, the northern, and the southern are completely different places in Ohio. That's why they have 2 NFL football teams. New York is similar, but for different reasons. New York has 3, but for different reasons. Yeah. New York might have 4. New York might have... New Jersey most certainly has 2 teams. New Jersey has the Jets and the Giants, most certainly. And then the Bills are up there in Rochester. But I want to say there's always a minor technicality, like maybe it is just the 3. Los Angeles, like California had 4. Arizona's basically a California team. Not Arizona, Las Vegas. The Raiders are effectively a California team. Their fan base is majority California. But I know it is by name the New York Jets and the New York Giants, but both of their team facilities are in New Jersey, and their stadium is in New Jersey. They practice and play in New Jersey. They reside in New Jersey. The teams all live in New Jersey. The players and the teams, they don't live in Manhattan, and they don't play in Manhattan. They identify as from Manhattan, but they all live and work in New Jersey. I know that's the reason, but also the state of New Jersey is currently in a lawsuit with the state of New York that the team shouldn't be allowed to carry the names because they haven't been in New York in decades. That is an active lawsuit right now, and I'm on the side of New Jersey. New Jersey doesn't just get to be the waste pit of New York forever. New Jersey is a beautiful state. Just because the city or whatever is trash, stinks, because the people there don't take care of their shit. That's actually kind of what I'm talking about. I want to talk about how these teams, these NFL owners, and many of their fan bases aren't taking care of their shit. The only good thing out of Bon Jovi, or out of New Jersey, is Bon Jovi. That's an old, that must be a really old meme, because Much Music used to make that joke a lot, and song breaks and stuff. They made it, and they Much Music had a series called Behind the Music that sucks. It was really, South Park and annoying and dumb, but it was funny too, because that's what they said. They said the only good thing to come out of no, that's not what they said. They did say that at one point during the thing. He was the only good thing to come out of New Jersey, but they said the man who gave love in New Jersey a bad name, and I just thought that was fucking hilarious. I've been thinking about that Bon Jovi joke since 2002. I thought that was so funny. The man who gave love and New Jersey a bad name. But anyway, NFL defenses get paid too. And NFL defensive head coaches have an axe to grind with the fan base, with the league. But they have a point to prove, and that's that the defenses get paid too, and that the defenses eventually catch up. The thing is, Bill Belichick had been telling you this the whole time. Bill Belichick actually never fell behind the curve as a coach and as a schemer and as a play caller. He fell behind the coach. He fell behind because the last 5 years of his coaching tenure was a major cultural shift in college football, where those kids expected that they were inheriting massive wealth, and when you go to a team like the Patriots, that they were inheriting Super Bowls and that they didn't have to work for any of it. And so what's happened over the last 7 to 10 years is that the work ethic and the willingness to go and get it and work for it and improve at your craft, learn your craft and improve at your craft is that's gone. The kids that come into the league expect to be as good as they were in college is as good as they'll ever need to be. But that's not an NFL problem. I have been writing about how that is a problem since 2012. You can go back on my Facebook and you can probably find me talking about that to my small circle of friends all the way back as far as 2005. I stopped writing on Facebook because I was extremely me to my followers. And like, we don't want to read this. We want puppies. And I'm like, well, go fuck yourself then. You suck. You can go find my Facebook. Some of you have found and stalked my Facebook, and you stop at the window dressing of the fact that I just never took down any of my exes. Whatever. That's supposed to be a photo album, a historical collection of your life, not a fucking store. It's not a storefront. Go read the shit I used to say. The Steelers fans were booing in the fourth quarter because of what I'm talking about. Arthur Smith never adjusted to the fact that they were bringing a five-man blitz package, every 5-man rush package, every play. It was every offensive snap they were bringing a 5-man rush, because he never once put a 6th or a 7th blocker on the line of scrimmage. One-on-one, his linemen weren't good enough. Cam Hayward played maybe the best game a nose tackle has ever played. That center was the most scattershot center I have ever seen in the NFL. And the Steelers' play calling was so bad. And Aaron Rodgers didn't make it better. Aaron did not make it better. See, Aaron got on the podium and he talked about how the league has changed over the last 21 years. Well, the quarterback has changed over the last 50 years. See, Dan Marino wasn't the best quarterback of all time because of Dan Marino's arm. Nobody understands this. Nobody understands this. Nobody understands this. Dan Marino wasn't good because of his arm. Dan Marino was good because of his brain, and because Dan Marino was going to beat you. See, there was no moment with the Packers. The Packers don't have this legendary moment. See, they don't have this legendary moment. Matthew Stafford has legendary moments, even in losing games. He has legendary moments where when it's his turn with the ball and it's in the fourth quarter, he says something to somebody and they go, fuck yeah, and they spark Super Saiyan and the team wins. Well, Matthew Stafford this weekend against the Panthers, they're down and they needed to score. And as he grabs his helmet to go get on the field, he says to Davante Adams, himself a legendary player, he says to Davante Adams, let's go snatch these boys' hearts. And Davante Adams went Super Saiyan, and of course Davante Adams didn't win the game, but you only need one Super Saiyan. Because that shit catches. That's why there are 11 men on the field. Because that shit catches. You could feel his energy suddenly just ignite. And if you're the offensive line and you know that you've already got the Matthew Stafford, you've got the Hall of Fame, you've got the legendary quarterback, when he says that shit, let's go win this game. But the way he said it, let's go snatch their hearts. I've been writing, I wrote a blog post, you can find it somewhere on the internet. I don't know where it is anymore. I don't know what it would be found, how you would find it. But I wrote a blog post sometime after 2015 where I explained what you're looking for in a quarterback. I broke it down. It's very simple, and you can see it in the eyes. You can see it in the eyes. If they don't pass the literal their eyes test, they can't win at the NFL level. See, Brock Purdy has the eyes thing. Quarterbacks have to be killers. They have to be psychopaths. They have to be able to switch on the, I am going to kill you now and it is not going to hurt my feelings. They have to be able to destroy men's dreams. You cannot win a Super Bowl if you are not willing to make sure that 31 other starting quarterbacks cannot and do not get to. See, Tom Brady is Tom Brady. He has those 10 Super Bowl appearances out of 20 years, every other, if you do the math. He has that because he doesn't give a fuck that you don't. It doesn't affect his sleep one bit that you don't. Not even a little. But see, I made a video about Kurt Benkert. It would hurt Kurt Benkert's feelings to make sure that you lost a playoff game. It would affect him. And so for that, he's not in the league. Aaron Rodgers gets petulant with his offensive line when he's under pressure. That's why Aaron Rodgers only has the one Super Bowl. He has all those MVPs because the camera's on me. He is saying to his guys, I'm the only one of you allowed to go Super Saiyan today. If we win this, it's because I won this. And that's why the Steelers lost. He didn't play like ass. His offensive line just couldn't block 5 dudes. They couldn't win one-on-one blocks. His right tackle lost the snap of the ball on the first drop back pass of the game. And that was the game. They gave him no help. They didn't chip a running back. They didn't chip a tight end. They didn't bring in an extra lineman. Nothing. They didn't adjust at all. And they lost because of it. Quarterback can't win a game on his own from his back at 42 with a busted Achilles. His Achilles is 4 years old. Springy as it might be, he's not running a 40-yard dash in 4.2 seconds. Let's look at the other way then. The Ravens, John Harbaugh, fired. Staff, cleaned house. Why? Why did they want Todd Monken gone? Because Todd Monken was asking the fastest quarterback to ever play the game to stand the fuck still and be a fucking punching bag. It doesn't make sense to play 1980s football. Why? Because everybody is trying to emulate that 1989 Bears defense. That Bears defense cheated because they played with the gloves off all season long. They cheated. They headhunted. They tried to intimidate and hurt your quarterback by hitting him late on purpose. Now, It's a penalty to hit your quarterback late. But you know what it is? Intimidating as fuck. The Patriots pummeled Herbert with absolutely no mercy. Absolutely no mercy. You can find clips. Some of the fumbles were just brutal. The one fumble, he goes to his left and a guy wraps him up around the waist, around the legs, which is a penalty. Wraps him up around the legs. And then he turns his body to try to run through the tackle around his legs, and he gets speared by the crown of a helmet right in his chest. And you can see his whole body blow up. Blah! And the ball separate from him. That's a penalty in the regular season. All of that is a penalty in the regular season. That's unnecessary roughness. You're not allowed to tackle the quarterback around the knees, and you're definitely not allowed to drive the crown of your helmet into anybody, anywhere on their body. But this is the playoffs, and we're not going to give you free points in the playoffs. That's the difference. The defenses woke up. The reason Dan Campbell can't make it to a playoff game and win a playoff game with a healthy defense is because his defense plays with the gloves off throughout the whole season. And because offenses are playing judo through the regular season, they're just trying to get to the playoffs healthy. His defenders hurt themselves all the time, and each other all the time. So, Lamar Jackson. Why can Brock Purdy win, but Lamar Jackson can't? Smaller. Should be more injury prone. Has a worse offensive line, objectively, and Shanahan doesn't do anything to protect him. So why does Purdy thrive? Purdy thrives to the reason that Marino thrived in '89. Marino was the only person to beat that 1989 Bears. That almost undefeated Bears Super Bowl, whatever year that was. I'm not a scholar of the game. I just watch it and I look for patterns. That Bears team that only lost one game lost to Marino. Why did they lose to Marino? That's the question that NFL historians and head coaches and coordinators and just coaches of all kinds. Your quarterback's coach needs to answer this question. He needs to answer this question in your fucking first interview. Why did Marino win that game? Nobody else won against the Bears that season. Why did Marino? What did Marino do differently that he beat the 1989 Bears and nobody else did? If you're a quarterback's coach and you don't have the right answer, you cannot coach in the modern NFL. You cannot coach after circa 1988 because you can't win consistently, because you can't beat a playoff defense. Sure, you can win in the regular season. You can keep your job for a really long time winning the regular season, but fans see through it now. Playoff success is all that matters because the playoff game is the real NFL football. It's the real NFL football. In the regular season, they pull up and they play they play things like prevent defense, because in the regular season it's an honors game. It's an honor. It's a what? How do they say it? It's a man's game. It's an honor game, right? Between men in the regular season. And so I'm willing to lose a regular season game on principle, on honor. They do this every week of the regular season. But that turns off in the playoffs. Turns off. I'm not going to let you win on honor because then I don't get to play anymore. So why can't the Ravens consistently win, and why did John Harbaugh eat the axe? Because if you're scouting internally, it's very difficult if you're the owner, not to hear what Lamar Jackson is saying. Because when you're a person who has a lot of money, and you'll start to recognize this when you start to give me a lot of money. You'll recognize this about humans. When we give people a lot of money, it becomes really difficult not to listen to them. It becomes very difficult not to trust their perspective, their perception, especially of themselves. This is why corporations don't give you a lot of money, but they give your boss more money than you, his boss more money than him, his boss more money than him, and the CEO the most money of all. Because that's the person they're listening to. This is why the Browns gave Myles Garrett so much money. They're listening to him. It's not about his success. It's about feeling like that's a guy I can't let leave, if you're Jimmy Haslam, because I listen to him. Now, we're not talking about the people who take advantage of that. I think Lamar Jackson might be a person who's taking advantage of that. I don't think that Lamar Jackson is intelligent or mature enough to be an NFL quarterback that wins. That's why he can't win from the pocket. He can't beat cover 8. He's never been able to beat cover 8. Until you can cover 0 rather. Until you can the 8-man pressure where they send 8. They used to call it something different when I was younger. They used to call it maybe they just called it sending all 8. Now they call it cover 0. The point is, he's never been able to defeat it. And if you can't with 2 wide receivers running routes, if you quarterback can't beat 3 pass defenders, you don't deserve to be in the NFL, because you still have 3 seconds to release the ball. It still takes 3 seconds to run from the line of scrimmage to the quarterback. So you still have time to pick a spot to throw the ball. You just get freaked out by the fact that there are 3 more blitzers than your defenders, your blockers. And so Lamar Jackson has never been able to beat. They called it engage 8. They called it engage 8 when I was younger. Now they call it cover 0. If you can't beat engage 8, if you can't beat cover 0 as a quarterback, you're just not mentally tough enough to win. You're just not mentally tough enough to win in the playoffs, to win consistently. Because you're going to take a hit. But if you have four route runners, which doesn't put you at that actually puts you with 6 blockers, so it only puts 2 free rushers. If you can't find an open receiver when you have 4 route runners and there are only 3 defenders against the pass, you're not a qualified quarterback. And what happens is that quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, they drop back, they see 2 free rushers, and they try to run. But that's why we've engaged 8. All of the outlets where you might run are already engaged with blitzers. That's why you call engage 8. You might think it's insane to call cover 0 against somebody like Lamar Jackson. It's not, because it gets in their head. It gets in their head. They have to throw the ball, but they're used to running. And so the question becomes, well, then why did Todd Monken have to go, and why did Harbaugh go as a result? And the answer isn't because Lamar Jackson has never learned how to beat cover 8. What was that, 6 years ago? It's not that. That's not why they had to go. The answer why they had to go is because they never built a let him run from it option into the offense. They never built if you see that it's probably going to be cover 0 or it's going to be a blitz, they never built a let him run the hell out of that pocket into the offense, and it started to mount up with injuries to his legs. Because defenders aren't allowed to tackle a quarterback in the throwing position around the legs. But the second you look like you might scramble, they're allowed to throw themselves at your legs. So they just throw themselves at his legs. Cam Newton talked about this. He and Ed Hockley got into a famous argument circa 2015. It was huge at the time. Everybody was talking about it. Cam Newton and Ed Hockley got into an argument where basically Cam got blowed the fuck up on the sideline. Just absolutely blowed the fuck up by a defender. And Cam thought that he was in the throwing posture, and he got all up in Ed Hockley's face about it, that should have been roughing the passer and all of this. And Ed Hockley laughed at him and said to Cam Newton, according to Cam Newton, that he is too young to get that call. You're too young to get that call. You're not allowed to hit the quarterback as he's trying to get to the sidelines call from circa 2015 that may or may not be in the rule books anymore because of guys like Cam Newton trying to exploit it. That's the thing, is when offenses can't beat you with their scheme, they start to beat you with the rule book. So that's why nobody wants to talk about this. Nobody in the world of new media, social media, or legacy media wants to talk about what actually happened with Russell Wilson. What actually happened with Russell Wilson is the only reason that Russell Wilson was ever good or ever a threat is because the rules were written in such a way that they gave a free 15-yard defensive pass interference on every single moon ball that was ever thrown. So if you just threw up a moon ball, wherever it came down was a penalty for like 5 years in the NFL. And so everything he threw was a moon ball. And so what you remember about him is nobody can remember huge highlight catches. Nobody can remember huge highlight catches, but what they remember is that the Seahawks offense under Russ Wilson, it used to have these big chunk plays, and it used to be in the red zone a lot. And then, in the let's act like he doesn't have athleticism, produces defensive pass interference. I mean, it still worked for him this season for a little while. And players realized that's what he was doing, and they listened to their coaches, and they just didn't get anywhere close to the wide receiver and let the moon ball sail off into the top of the fucking stadium. Uncatchable. Because they were always uncatchable. The problem is that the defenders back in the day would panic, and they were coached to, on deep balls, if like they couldn't track it, to just tackle the wide receiver, because that used to only be 15 yards. And this was this was around the time, but what I'm talking about is before they made holding a 5-yard penalty in DPI a spot foul. DPI used to be a 15-yard penalty. So that's what they would do. They'd just tackle you, or they'd just grab a hold of you. They would intentionally get the penalty so that you couldn't get close to the ball. And so when teams can't win on technique, what I am telling you is that when teams can't win on technique, they cheat. It's always been the case. They play outside the letter, or rather play within the letter, but outside the spirit of the rules. That's called cheating. I think we can all agree for the entirety of time that in an honor game where I'm going to let you remain within one score for the honor of the thing, I'm not going to run up the score on you in our home or your home, for the honor of the spectacle, I think we can agree that in that mindset, that I'm going to let you remain in the game for the honor of the thing, that you using penalties to get the lead is cheating. You, Carroll, we might notice that Pete Carroll is much more beloved in the media than he is among coaches. You never hear other coaches talk about how much they love Pete Carroll the way they talk about how much they love Andy Reid. And what you didn't hear after his termination from the Raiders was star TV pundits like Richard Sherman go to bat for Pete Carroll. Like, oh, I love Pete Carroll. There was a lot of, I love Pete Carroll, but his message gets stale fast to adults. I heard a lot of that. All right. I have to decide what I'm doing because I've got weed money. But I decided to engage in this live, which kind of means that I need to go to just Panera, or I need to just walk my happy ass down there. I don't want to stand at the bus stop talking to you beautiful fuckers. I don't know where my gloves are. That's a good place to start. I didn't have any specific thesis, by the way. Hey, Egregor. I didn't have a specific thesis, by the way, of what I want to talk about. I just kind of want to trauma dump the NFL because there's a lot of stuff I don't see anybody talking about. There's a lot of shit I don't see anybody talking about. And I need a co-host. I badly need a co-host, somebody to bounce these ideas off. And Gemini is just not a voice that I can do that with. Like, I can't have, well, I guess I could have both apps up. I guess I could try. That just doesn't sound like good content generation. Because for those of you who don't follow the game and don't know the trivia and don't know the people I'm talking about, and I'm talking deep nerd stuff from a long time ago, you're going to go, I don't know what you're talking about. This is most certainly not an entry-level NFL conversation. And that's what everybody's always said about my blogs. Whenever I write about the NFL, they're like, well, this is not an entry-level NFL blog. And it's like, no, it's not. Those exist. Why would I make one? Emphasis there on I. Why would I make another introductory blog? Why would I make another NFL 101? There are plenty of NFL 101 subscriptions that you can subscribe to. Accounts you could subscribe to. That's what I was trying to say. Plenty of those. Where's the expert level dialogue? Where's the expert level analysis? I don't know. So why not make that? Well, the answer to why not make that is who watches it. Because who stumbles on expert level NFL analysis? Everybody who stumbles on the people who are claiming to have expert level analysis, like that Brian Keller or whatever his name is. Like, everybody on the internet, myself included. I don't have expert level analysis, by the way. I have, I come at the NFL with a different kind of analytical tools. I come at it with psychological, philosophical, religious, mathematical, analytical tools. And one of the things that I've noticed is that among the coaching circles, military types are more and more being weeded out for nerd types. So we're watching the Vietnam happen. We're watching the we are watching the Vietnam War and the Kennedy presidency happen in the NFL in 2025, going into now it's 2026, going into the 2026-2027 season. If you think of the end of the regular season as the beginning of the 2026 drama season, the NFL Network and other media groups call it the non-playing season. If you think of the non-playing season for the teams that aren't in the playoffs right now, including the teams that got bounced, as the storytelling part, the part where they rev up, they build the spring necessary to launch themselves into the playoffs next year, this time of year does not get disinteresting. It gets quiet because the teams are trying to manage what is actual fucking chaos. The teams not in the playoffs right now are kicked beehives. Lamar Jackson, though, is a Raven for now. I really think the Dolphins are going to swing as hard as they possibly can to move heaven and earth to get Jim Harbaugh, whichever one was from the Ravens. I think that's Jim. To get the Harbaugh from the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. I have a real feeling they are going to push as hard as they can to get Lamar Jackson free from the Ravens, because I don't think Lamar Jackson wants to be a Raven. I actually think it's the other way around. I don't think the Ravens want Lamar Jackson to be a Raven, and I think they parted from Jim Harbaugh because Jim Harbaugh wouldn't cut Lamar Jackson loose. Rich Eisen talks every time there's even a little bit of friction with the Ravens about how they were 2 or 3 days away from trading him, from not even trading him, from letting him go on that super restrictive franchise tag to another team to negotiate a contract. And if he signed that contract, they would have been eligible for 2 first-round picks. Those 2 first-round picks look a lot more lucrative, a lot more valuable right now
in the non-playing season than Lamar Jackson. Why? Because Huntley can come in and play better. Huntley can come in and distribute the ball better. Huntley just can't play an 18-week season, and he doesn't have the personality to get you a playoff win. What does that mean? I don't know. But I do believe that everybody in the league, everybody in the non-playing portion of this season right now, starting today, whatever day today is, Tuesday, January whatever, of 2026, starting today, everybody is going to be trying, that's not playing right now, is going to spend this non-playing season, next year's playing season, and the following non-playing season up to the draft, acquiring draft picks and capital and ammunition to try to get that Manning kid, that Arch Manning, because he looked good the last time anybody saw him at the beginning of the NFL non-playing season. That's my big prediction. If you wanted a big prediction about what's going to happen in the NFL, everybody is going to be tanking for Arch. Everybody is going to be trying to get ammunition and to have that kid. Because if you don't have, and this is what I'm building to, if you don't have specifically the superhero build or the pedigree of a Manning, but if you can't run a 4.4 and bench whatever insane amount that Josh Allen, is supposed to be able to bench in all these commercials, if you can't be the American Gladiator quarterback, you cannot have sustained success in the NFL. I know that Mahomes isn't a great big towering hulk of a man, and that's why his body is already broken down. There is a very real chance that we don't get a 30s resurgent Mahomes and a Mahomes into his 40s, because there's a very real chance that we don't get a late 30s Mahomes. For the same reason, the last 5 years, Andy Reid has abandoned blocking schemes in favor of letting his quarterback run around back there like an asshole. Well, 2 ankle injuries later, and now what is that? Was it an ACL? What did he pop? The athleticism is gone by 30. Even if it's not. All these quarterbacks talk about how the quarterback's game has to change. Their perspective has to change. But that's not true. Aaron Rodgers got the Steelers into the playoffs by making stuff happen out the back doors of the offense. What that means is 2 things, and we'll get to why Marino won. But I've already told you. It means 2 things. It means that the offense has to be designed with a fucking back door. And that means an outlet near the fucking sticks, Arthur Smith. It doesn't mean an outlet behind the line of scrimmage. Jonnu Smith isn't going to do shit with a negative 2-yard catch for your offense. Now, if he's negative 2 yards from the sticks, we can talk about breaking a tackle and making something happen. But it's 3rd and 10. Your outlet receiver is 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. They're not going to make it 12 yards. Arthur, wake the fuck up. Wake the fuck up. This makes me fucking sick. It makes me crazy how many play callers do this. Think that their fucking outlet receiver 12 yards from the sticks is going to shake 1 tackle and make it 12 yards. No, they're not. They're going to get tackled 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage because the defense plays 2. And so here are your 2 things with Aaron Rodgers. That means that Aaron has to be able to get there. He has to be able to get there out the back door. And you have to have a receiver that's on an option dependent on whether the back door needs to be used, which means you have to have a wide receiver facing the fucking quarterback inside 5 yards. Well, if the defense can just maintain a spy, how do you not have a tight end on a permanent option route named Travis Kelce on every team? It doesn't make sense to me, the things that they don't copycat. The reason is because you can't teach. You can't teach intangibles. But when these offensive and defensive minds, especially the pundits, the people on TV, want to say things like, I don't know how he's always open. And then he explains to you, I'm on a permanent option route where I am permanently spying Pat Mahomes, and my job is to just be open. You can coach that with film study, teaching the tight end over and over and over what's going to be open, where it's going to be open. You guys all love that Olsen. But listen to what the only thing he's doing is telling you what wide receivers are going to be open, why they were open, and where they're going to be open again. That's all he's doing. We have made coaching way too esoteric. Way too esoteric. These coaches spend way too much time locked away in offices watching film study alone. All of their film study should be done in front of their offense. Every single second of it. None of it should be done off the clock. None, ever. It should all be done right there in the film room together as a collaborative process. There should be no coming to the game with these prepared, I'm going to beat you up clips. None of that shit is necessary in the modern NFL. They're all college graduates. They're all college graduates. At least attendees. Treat them like college students. Not like retarded factory workers. Because they're not retarded factory workers anymore. It's not the 1960s and hasn't been for a long time. So those are some of the things I see in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers could have worked with the Steelers. It could have worked because he was doing the audibles. He was calling the checks. The problem is that his team didn't go to film study. They didn't know the plays. They didn't know the playbook, and they didn't know where they would be open in the defense. So when he got in trouble and he looked downfield to throw the ball like he was taught to do, plant your feet, look downfield, hurl it at a guy that's open, exactly like he was taught to do to play the game from the pocket, nobody was open because his wide receivers hadn't been taught how to get open. What on the field is going to be open, where and when. And DK Metcalf can't turn. He can run one direction. That's why he's not a Seahawk. He has no lateral mobility. You don't ask a guy to learn lateral mobility. What you do is you ask him to be the very best there is at moving forward. See, the Steelers made this mistake with Najee Harris too. And I don't think, actually, that it's Tomlin. I don't think it's Tomlin. But I do think that Tomlin's coaches are arrogant because they've coached for Tomlin, who's there for 18 years, and so they think they won't get axed. But that might also be Tomlin being complacent and not actually fixing the problem. Because sometimes actually fixing the problem means removing it. And if the problem is that your offensive line coach can't teach punch, then you get a new offensive line coach. And if you're the owner and the problem is that your head coach can't bring in an offensive line coach or who can teach the offensive lineman how to throw a punch, what you have is a head coach who has no brain trust. And if you have no brain trust in your head, if your head coach has no brain trust, you have to cut him loose. You have no choice. So Tomlin's on a slippery slope. Tomlin's in a place where he has to be able to defend that every single one of his coaches can teach a rookie class how to compete. Because if he can't convince the Rooneys that he can teach a rookie class how to compete, the Rooneys have to start over yesterday. They have to have already let him go, which they haven't done. And if he can convince them that he can teach a rookie class how to compete, he's got to pull that out of his ass because he never has. He inherited a Super Bowl caliber team, and he won with it. And since then, he's done a lot of fuck all. He's done a lot of losing in the playoffs. A lot of losing in the playoffs. And Rachie, I'm not trying to batter or berate your team. I'm trying to be as honest about your team as I've been about all of these other teams I've talked about. Don't even get me started on the Dolphins. Legitimately, they're in the non-playing portion of the season, and I don't want to talk about them, but they need a quarterback, and they chose the wrong time. They chose the wrong time to find themselves in desperate need of a quarterback because their quarterback has bought all the way out. Yeah, it's not meant to not be above your head. If I'm raising the social sea level, if I'm raising the average depth of if I'm raising the average depth of the water in the conversational jar, it's going to be over most people's heads. This isn't an introduction. It's not an introductory talk about football. This is what I see. So I could have titled this Philosophy for the Football Fan, Philalitheia for the Football Fan, if you wanted, but it's not for the football fan. It's just using football as a lens from which to take my method, the Shaggy method, and just approach it as to problem solving the problems that I see. And the problems that I see are playoff teams that shouldn't have been playoff teams. Texans never should have been in the playoffs to begin with. They're not good enough. Their defense isn't that good. Their defense isn't that good. They just have 4 down linemen who will beat your 5. And nobody adjusted to it all season. Just let them beat the hell out of your quarterback all season. There was, the 49ers were really struggling to move the ball. And Shanahan talked about it. They set up a, oh wow, my shoes are not going to be waterproof for long. They're breaking away from the sole already. They froze and tore. That's fun. Oh yeah, the Texans quarterback, he dropped the snap 3 times and he personally fumbled twice. Cam Hayward had a Hall of Fame legendary game. He was ragdolling that center and they couldn't capitalize on it on offense. Wouldn't capitalize on it on offense. I'm not trying to talk about just the Steelers game. The 49ers, they set up this end around to Sky Moore because they knew that they were struggling. It was embarrassing. It was absolutely embarrassing offensive production. The Steelers defense they did their job. They played lights out. Perfect game. I have no complaints about the Steelers. You cannot keep a team from scoring the entire game when they're up. And your offense is doing fuck all. It's impossible. They're still an NFL offense. Even if they're going to honor code you and just run the ball and punt, they're only honor coding you to disrespect your offense in the playoffs. So he knew his offense wasn't doing shit. He knew he couldn't get any production. He knew he was having trouble protecting Brock Purdy. So what does he do? He sets up this end around to Sky Moore that doesn't do anything. But then he calls the end around reverse pass to Juwan Jennings, who's done that before. And he talked about it. He said Juwan threw a perfect ball. He said he threw a perfect ball. And I was really hoping he would throw a bad ball. And I laughed. He explained it as he said it. I'm not saying the quote exactly right. He says, I wish he'd thrown a perfect ball. He let him. I wish he'd thrown a bad ball and put it right on him. But because he let him, it was a score. Because he led the throw, because he threw a perfect ball, it was a score. Relying on somebody other than your quarterback to get points is okay. Your quarterback is there to win the game. And this is what Matt LaFleur did wrong. Matt LaFleur relied on that, but he kept putting his quarterback in positions to win the game on 3rd and long, 4th down, and in critical moments in the 4th and the 5-minute periods of the halves. That's how they say it. He kept putting him in positions to be a superhero, and eventually it didn't work. So there are competing philosophies here, is what I'm saying. You can put your quarterback out there and have him win every play, and rely on 40-point games like the Bills do. But I think that's the future of NFL offense, because you can beat the other quarterbacks. When Justin Herbert goes, all right, the only thing I can do is scramble. The only way I can get this defense to back off of me is to immediately, as soon as I take the snap, just take off like it's a designed run. And that worked. They got a bunch of yards. And then he took a devastating shot, and it was another turnover. Due to the broken hand, guys. Legendary, heroic shit. And it won't matter. Because his coach isn't good enough. Harbaugh's not good enough. Harbaugh, the Michigan Harbaugh, he proved that he's not good enough at the NFL level by going through the exact same thing his brother's going through with Lamar Jackson, with Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers. He's already proved he can't do this. He can have the athletic prototype, the phenom, and he can't do it. They were talking during the game that Greg Roman's got to go. He's not good enough. He's not good enough. You know you've got the worst offensive line in football, so let's drop back and throw it 40 times. What are we doing? What are we doing? We know that Christian Gonzalez is shutting down the right side of our offense. So let's throw it into tight windows in the middle. And frankly, I have been saying that Keenan Allen ain't that guy. I have been saying that Keenan Allen ain't who he's been sold as since San Diego. But I have been saying that Keenan Allen just ain't that guy. He just ain't that guy. He ain't the receiver. He ain't the guy who deserves a career contract with one team. He ain't that guy. And that drop proved it to me. You can't drop that over the middle wide open like that. Whatever, man. Whatever. I'm not here to say that everything I say is right and that I'm proved right all the time. And I'm really not here to stack W's. I just wanted to talk football for a little while. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of stuff this weekend that's just been proven what I've been saying and what I've been thinking right. I predicted a lot of these games like right. But the problem that I make is that I give both sides of the prediction, because I understand that even if I'm a third-party observer, I'm not trying to teach you how to bet. I'm trying to teach you how to root for your team, how to take a rooting interest in the game. I'm trying to predict how the coaches are going to play the game and how that is going to come out. And so I haven't done a lot of that. I do it with Gemini. I do it with myself. I do a lot of mental masturbation. Get some women in there. Maybe things will change. Maybe. I don't know. The teams that have female ownership aren't better statistically. It's taken the Bears a long time to get over the Virginia McCaskey hump. So Lamar. Let's talk Lamar Jackson. If you're Steve Buscemi, I know his name is Steve Bisciotti. If you're Steve Buscemi and you've got Lamar Jackson and you pay him more than you pay anyone on the offensive staff, you might pay him more than you pay the entire offensive staff. Okay, Rachie, be well. You might pay your quarterback, Lamar Jackson, more than you pay the entire offensive staff combined. And he's telling you that the offense doesn't work. He needs to be able to run. We were winning. I was winning these MVPs. We were threatening in the playoffs to win the Super Bowl because I was taken off, because I was running, because I was in command of the offense, and because the defense had to react to what I was doing. When I became reactionary to the defense, when I began to react to their schemes, I started getting sacked and throwing interceptions. And my receivers aren't good enough to run option routes every play, but they are good enough to be on a permanent scramble drill. I won 2 MVPs. If you're Lamar Jackson, you're telling Steve Bisciotti this. I won 2 MVPs running a permanent scramble drill. Just improvising out there. Just playing the game of football. Why the hell am I not allowed to do that? I've spent the last 2 years injured and sick. Why am I not allowed to just play football the way that football comes naturally to me? And the answer is racism. The answer is racism that's still baked into a lot of the owners, because back in the day, white people weren't athletic. Back in the day, the whole, black people are just more athletic than white people thing was real. This is why they still make fun of white players who play traditionally athletic positions like corner, I said it right, cornerback or wide receiver. Whites who play wide receiver or cornerback are made fun of in very explicitly racist terms. But white people are just expected to suck up racism. People make fun of you for being your race. White person, you're just supposed to suck it up because it's just supposed to be true. And if it's not true, you're supposed to be intelligent and tough enough to know the difference. But, the inverse doesn't apply to neoliberal and postmodern. They don't take a statement and then turn it around and see if it remains true. They don't prove their statements. They don't test their statements for veracity or for proof before they make them, and before they enforce them, and before they cult them into your brain. But that's a problem in the NFL too. is because the coaches are also college educated, and because they're less military men, they're more and more religious men. So Sean McVay is a cultist. Now he's got the playbook, but so did David Koresh. So did the lady. I've watched a lot of cult videos. I've watched a lot of not videos. I've watched a lot of documentaries, and I've watched a lot of metamaterial about cultists. Just observing them, seeing what they're actually like, what claims they're actually making, how they can convince people, and it's a combination of superficial mastery and sex is how they control people. A combination of superficial mastery and sex. And so an NFL owner can control you with the superficial mastery of being a billionaire and the sex that comes with the money that they give you, and their proximity, because billionaires are surrounded by easy women. Always. Rich people are always surrounded by easy women. And so Sean McVay is uniquely able to sell that combination of superficial mastery and sex, because he's the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams. Now, the Rams under McVay were actually interesting and exciting before they moved to Los Angeles. But he couldn't get free agents or high quality trade prospects to want to be a part of his team, because they didn't have the sex appeal of Los Angeles and St. Louis. Sorry, St. Louis. You don't have a sex appeal city. This is why Buffalo struggles. Like, people were talking going into that game that Buffalo was going to beat Jacksonville because Jacksonville has the better roster, because Jacksonville has been incubating first round picks for 5 years. Yeah, maybe. But Jacksonville has also been incubating losses everywhere but London for the last 20 years. So you got to be able to get over that at the ownership level. Because, see, this is what a lot of people don't understand, is all that losing is also PTSD. It's post-traumatic stress for the owners too. I used to just sit and look. I used to watch Dolphins games for every time they would cut to Stephen Ross. The only thing I wanted to watch was Stephen Ross's face. I would watch these whole 3-4 hour Dolphins broadcasts just for a glimpse at Stephen Ross's face. Because you could see it during the losing. You could see it, the post-traumatic stress on his face. You could see it, again, with the exact same thing. You could see it. And so every time they have success, the reason they immediately bounce back to not having success is because the minute they make a mistake, it's back to the fucking drawing board. We have to start all the way over because our owner has PTSD about minor mistakes. It's a real thing. And so I actually think that the owner of the Ravens wants to move on from Lamar Jackson. I think he's noticed the injuries. I think he's noticed the mumbling, and I think he's noticed the illnesses. I think he's noticed the seasonal illnesses. The absence because of seasonal illnesses is something that immature, low-income mama's boys can get away with in other workplaces and college. You can decide that you're not going to go to your college classes because you have an illness. And that translates at the NFL level to thinking that you cannot go to meetings and practice because you have an illness. But it also means that you don't get... But it also means that you have to finesse getting your game check. Finesse getting your game check. And Lamar Jackson's made it clear that he's only there for the check. That he's open to getting a bigger check elsewhere. So I think Bishotti has noticed the immaturity. I think he's noticed that his quarterback is a liability and anything but a scramble drill. And I think he's also noticed that when they have let Lamar play Lamar ball in the playoffs, they've gotten embarrassed. The Pat Mahomes is a freak, because Pat Mahomes might be the only quarterback in the history of the NFL that just played their style of ball for 4 quarters of a playoff game, a series of playoff games, and won multiple Super Bowls doing that. But even his style of play is mitigated by rushing 5 every play. It just means your back end has to be good. And it shouldn't be hard. Frankly, it shouldn't be hard. If you're sending 5 and you're holding 6, so you're holding 6 back, it shouldn't be difficult to play a middle zone where you got 4 guys in a zone at the sticks, if you want to put them on the sticks, and 2 deep safeties. That ain't hard. I don't know why every defense doesn't just run that exact play. I can draw it up in my head. Just run that exact play every single play. I don't get it. If you're going to send 4, leave a spy. If they try to go somewhere, blow them the fuck up. So that they have to be thinking about, okay, well, if I'm going to try to run through the offensive line, I got a guy who's looking at me the whole time. Or if I'm going to try to go out the back door, I got to get there. And I got to get there now, which rushes them through their progressions. And what does it do? It beat Mahomes when the Bengals did it. And it beats the Bills and the Ravens every time their opponents do it to Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Every time. The problem is when the players play out of position, because it's Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow is less often scrambling, but he can get you, he can gash you when he's feeling good. Or Pat Mahomes when he used to take off. He used to just take off and run. We don't remember it because he's busted his legs so many times. Tearing up that ankle on a quarterback sneak early in his career is why they do the whole Kelsey push, where they give the ball to Travis Kelsey or one of the other tight ends and have them go over the line in short yardage situations. Keeping the quarterback upright isn't just important. It's not just important because, you know, it's a negative play. A sack is a negative. It's a loss of yardage and down. You got to keep your quarterback upright because your backup's not that good. You did not pay to put a starter on the bench. No owner will do that. They won't play. Well, one owner would do that, but I don't think he did it on purpose. The Falcons did it this season, and Kirk Cousins didn't save the day. The Bengals having Joe Flacco, a secondary starter on the roster, wasn't by design. It was a necessity. And then the 49ers having all those quarterbacks all those years, again, wasn't by design. They didn't carry Brock Purdy and Garoppolo and the other one. Damn, they had so many quarterbacks and that fucking rookie. They didn't carry all those quarterbacks because they needed to. They carried all those quarterbacks because they couldn't keep them healthy. And so keeping your quarterback upright it's about making sure that you don't have to have a bunch of money tied up at the quarterback position behind that's not playing, behind the quarterback who is playing, because you're not going to rotate your quarterbacks, which I don't think makes sense. I actually do think they should rotate the quarterbacks. I think if you've got 2 quarterbacks, you should rotate them, because like if you've got a guy who's just struggling that day, you put in the other guy and he's the hot hand. It's like your running backs, right? Like sometimes, what's his name? Derrick Henry, just not going to have a good day. Sometimes he's just going to be fumble prone, right? And so you run the other guy. And then we go, but wait a minute, Derrick Henry's on the sidelines and the team is losing. And it's like, well, yeah, right. Because you didn't pay both running backs. Pay for both running backs. And that's why the salary cap exists. So you can't just be the New York Yankees and you have the best player at every position and you just beat people by having an unfair advantage, frankly. I think that's how the Dodgers won this last season, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody could correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. It's been an hour. Thank you for hanging out with me for an hour. I'm not on the streets. I've been waiting on this bus stop for like 2 minutes. See, the thing is, it doesn't super duper matter because it's other people's money. It's other people's money. It's other people's industry. It's a world that I don't actually get to participate in, right? I'm not a coach. I'm never going to be invited to be on TV. I'm not going to call the games. I'm not going to teach you. Not in a professional capacity, but the game could be better. The game could be better. The players could be better. But the players not being better is not an example of the NFL losing its brain trust. It's not an example of teams not being able to develop coaching trees. It's not an example of owners not being able to develop wide relationships with general managers and agents. It is. All of those things compound and make the NFL a less good product than what it should be. But the problem is endemic. It's not just a problem with the NFL. It's a problem with everyone. It's a problem with probably all 6 of you watching this and every single person who's flipped through it. Most certainly every single person who's tried to say something negative about me during this. Do you think you're good enough? Like Justin Jefferson this season, he might have been my favorite example of what I'm talking about, the contra example of what I'm talking about. And here comes the bus, so this is over. But Justin Jefferson sacrificed a year on his Hall of Fame trajectory. He sacrificed a year to make sure that his quarterback got the reps that he needed, not throwing to Justin Jefferson, so that the team could get better. That is how you earn a career contract.